My dear students, I welcome you again to this second session of hands-on practice, hands-on practical based on the topic functions in Python. In the previous practical session, we have discussed how to make a function definition, how to give it a function call, okay, and we have discussed the different types that are possible in function definition and function call. Then we discussed about indentation. After that we were up to the dunder main dunder, that is the name of top level statements and which is stored in a variable called dunder name dunder. And at the end, the most important thing that was to clear your doubt about the execution of a function were discussed using the execution frame with the help of the website pythontutor.com. Okay, I think you have also run your code there and have executed different programs, and you will see that how that Python interpreter works. Okay, now in this part we will be discussing about arguments, different type of arguments, and returning various values from a function, which is a very great advantage of Python. And we will be discussing about that global keyword and mutable immutable data types that are passed in function. Okay, so let's begin with the parameters. So this is a program in which we are adding four variables A, B, C, D, and the result is being returned. If you have gone through the previous program, the previous session, this will be very easy to understand. This program will be very easy to understand. Here, all these arguments that are mentioned here, A, B, C, and D, these are positional arguments. Why so? Because the values being passed here, okay, let's give it a different name, okay, so that the things are more clear to you. Let us give them different names like PQRS, and we will change the name here also. And why these are positional arguments? Because the values that are being passed, which are A, B, C, D, will be copied as per their position. So this A will be copied in P, B will be copied in Q, C will be copied in R, and D will be copied in S. If we change the sequence here, if I write B, D, C, A, then those value will be copied as per their position. So the B will be copied in P. Okay, so that's why these are called positional arguments, because the values are expressed depending on their position. Okay, so this is positional argument, and this is a simple program of adding four integers, four numbers. Let us see the result. The result will be the addition of all the numbers. Okay, that is 100. Now let's move to the default argument. Suppose my question is, write a program in Python using function to add 4 or less numbers. 4 or less means it can be 1, it can be 2, it can be 3, or it can be 4. Now what we will do is, we will provide the argument's default value, and the default value will be 0. So I will write like this. I can just provide the 0 value R to R or S only, but I am providing it to Q also. So Q, R, S, these three variables are having the default value 0. So when they will be added, they will not change anything. Okay, so what is the importance of default argument? If we pass the value from here, those will be overwritten. If we do not pass any value, the default value will be used. So let us change this program code a bit, and we write the values by ourselves here, like 10, 20, 30, 40. This is one statement. Let us copy the same line and we change this 40 and in the next line we change two values, and in the last line we just give one value. Okay, let us save this. So you can see the same function definition, function call of add is having different number of arguments. One is having 4, one 3, and then 2, then 1. So this is only possible with the use of default argument. Why? Because this 10 will be copied in P, 20 in Q, and 30 in R. So S is not provided, so S will be taken as 0. Here this will be taken as P, this will be as Q, the remaining R and S will be taken as 0. Here 10 will be taken as P and all the remaining will be taken as 0. Okay, so that's the use of default argument. Without using default argument, you could not have created such program of getting the addition of 4 or less numbers. Okay, let us run this program. You can see the result. Hundred 60. Okay. The first result for is 100. The second one is for this 3, that is 60. Then we have 30 and then 10. So this is the use of default arguments. I think it is clear to you. But if you write like this, we were talking about the position of default argument, that all the default arguments must be at the rightmost side of the argument list. So we will check the result after executing it. You can see syntax error, non-default argument follows default argument. Okay, it is saying that this S, that is a non-default argument, it is following the default argument Q and R, which is not allowed by Python. So you must remember that these, that is the default arguments, must be at the rightmost side of the argument list. Clear? Okay. Now we move towards keyword arguments, where we can name the arguments and we can position them anywhere. So this is a general program. Now here this is 10, 20, 30, 40. This is a original call. Now here what we write is we change the position. Before giving A, we write B is equal to 20, comma A equal to 10, comma D equal to 40, comma C equal to 30. So we have changed the positions. Okay. So we have changed the positions of the arguments. This call, this one is the use of positional arguments. Why? Because this first value 10 will be copied in P, 20 in Q, 30 in R, 40 in S. But if we want to change the position, then we must give the name. There is provision to change the position, but there is a rule also that if you want to change the position of the argument, you must give them their name. Okay, let's see the catch that I am discussing. Let us save it and run it. Okay, you can see that there is an error. Unexpected keyword argument B. Why so? Can any one of you answer? It is very simple. I have told you that the names that will be given will be the same that were used in this function definition. So you will be using PQRS in place of ABCD. So you will be using like this. Okay. Please remember that if you are using named argument or keyword arguments, then the names that you will use will be the same as you have made in your function definition. You cannot give them any name because it will match the name. If you are changing the sequence, then the only thing which remains with Python interpreter is to check their name. Okay, so there are two things. Either you provide it in a sequence, that is positional argument. If you want to change the position, you must provide its proper name, which is PQRS here. Okay, so now it will be executed. You can see the result. Both the times the result is 100. So this is the use of keyword argument. So we have seen the use of default arguments, positional argument, that is very easy, and the main was default arguments and keyword argument. So you can have any function. The function we discussed in theoretical portion was of simple interest. So I want you to try some more that simple interest example as practice. Okay, and try different combinations for the default argument and keyword argument. The same thing is, you should have those keyword arguments all named, but suppose you should be following the same rule that the no positional argument should be at the right side. Okay, so if you want that this should be Q and we are providing this as 20, suppose this is the definition, then what will be the values? This 20 will be taken as P. Okay, then the Q, R and S you are providing. Okay, so we will check the result. Okay, the same result. So this was the another thing that we have discussed in the theoretical section, that you can mix the keyword argument with positional argument, but the positional argument should not follow the keyword argument. It should be at the beginning. The remaining, that is the default argument and the keyword argument, should be at the end. Clear? So you can combine any of these arguments, but the rules must be followed. Okay, I think I am clear to you. All these concepts are getting clear to that you have discussed in the theoretical session. Now we will discuss returning multiple values. So here just I change this program a bit. What I write is, I want to return all these values again, same. Okay, but just let us change the sequence. Suppose I return like this, S, R, Q, P. Okay, so now the call will be changed a bit because you are returning more than one value. Python can return more than one value from a function. Many other languages like C, C++ cannot return more than one value. Here we have tried to return this value and we have called this function and used print function. So it will directly print the values returned from the function in the screen. But I have told you in the theoretical session that these values that are returned, which are more than one, will only be returned in the form of a tuple. Okay, you have studied tuples in class 11th. So we have saved this and we will execute it. And you can see this parenthesis. This is the sign for tuple. So we have got the value 40, 30, 20, 10 because we return in the reverse sequence. So we have got this value as a tuple. So the point that we have discussed has been verified, that the values that are returned by the function, if there are more than one, they will be returned in the form of a tuple. The second thing we discussed, that we can unpack it. I think you have in your memory how to unpack a tuple. If you have missed that concept, you can go back to the class 11th videos and you can have a look at the video on tuples and you will get the concept back in your mind. So I will show you how to unpack it. So we will be using a different command to unpack it. These are 4 variables. We will be using 4 variables to unpack it. And I will copy this command to the function here. So what will happen? The result of this call, that is a tuple, will be broken into 4 variables A, B, C and D, and they will be printed in the next line, comma B, comma C, comma D. These are printed and we will see the result. You can see the result and you can see the difference. As this is a tuple, so it has been treated as a single entity in the parenthesis. As these that we have made as a separate variables, so these will be shown as separate entities. You can see the difference. This is the difference. This value return will be a tuple. Now we have unpacked the tuple, so we can print them as separate values without this comma. Because it was a tuple, that's why these comma are used to separate the values. Here we have unpacked them and printed them separately. Okay, I think the concept of returning more than one value is clear to you. It is returned in the form of tuple and we can unpack the tuple in this simple variables. Okay, great. Now we will discuss the concept of scope and name recognition. That was the LEGB rule, local, enclosing, global and built-in environment. Okay, so this is an example in which we have a function named function. You can give the name function, okay, because it is not a keyword. In this we have a variable x. This is a global variable because it is defined in the top level statements, and then we have just called the function x, the function, and we have printed the value of x there. So in this function we are trying to print the value of x. So what will the interpreter do? It will check the existence of x in its local environment, that is this function, and it will not find this x here. So it will look in enclosing, so it is not being enclosed by anything, so it will just go to the global environment and here it will find x. So this x will be printed. Let's check it. The value 10 is being printed. Now we will check the concept of precedence to the local variable. Suppose we write a variable called x equal to 5 here. Now what it will do is, when we try to print x, it will check for the presence of x in the local environment first. So it will take this x, that is 5. So it will print the value 5. It will not go to this x because it has found that value of x in local environment. So why it will go to that global environment? So it will just use this value of x, that is 5. Okay, let us check the result. It is correct. Clear? So this is the rule. If there are two variables of same name in a local space and one in global space, so the priority is always given to the local variable. Clear? Now we will use the concept of global keyword. If we want that this x that we have changed should be the global x, then what we will do is we will write the statement global x, which means that you will now change the value of x, that will be the global one. Okay, please keep in mind that there should not be any local x here. So if you are changing the x here, you are making a statement called global x. This means that in the following lines, the x you have used will refer to the global value of x. Okay, so this x that is mentioned will be the global x. Its value will be 5 and you have printed the value x. You can say that you have, how can you check the value of the x is changed from 10 to 5? Because you have declared a variable x here. So this x can be taken by the interpreter. To show this, we will write a print statement here also. Print x. So this x that is being referred will be the global x. So it should be 10. No, it will not be 10. It will be 5, because using this global keyword, you are started accessing this global x and you have made this value 5. So this value should be 5, and the same, this x should also be 5. Okay, let us check the result. We should get 5, 5 two times. You see the result is same as per our expectation. We are getting both the result as 5. Why? Because using this global x, we have started accessing the original value, that was the value of global x in this function. Okay, so any x value that you will use here will be the global one. Okay, so this was the use of the global statement. Coming towards the end, we will be discussing about the mutability and immutability of data type passed in a function. So what we have learned in our theoretical portion, that if an immutable data type is passed to a function call through a function call to the function definition, its value, means the original value, will not change. So this was our theoretical concept. Now we will prove it programmatically. We have an integer x equal to 10 and we are passing that value in the function, and this 10, because it is an integer, it is immutable. So this x is copied in this a. We are checking the value received. This will be 10. Now we are changing the value here. A is equal to a plus 2 and we are printing the value of a. So this will be 12, because we are changing the value here. And when you are coming back and again printing the value f of x, what will be the value of x? It will be 10, not 12. Many of you have calculated the value 12 in your mind. No? That's great if you have not calculated so. Why I am saying that? Because there are two memory frames. In one memory frame, these global memory frame, these statements will be executed, in which this value of x will be 10 only. And this is a separate memory frame in which you have copied the value of x as a and changed the value there. But being immutable data type, this original value of x will remain unchanged, so you will get 10 here. Okay, should we check the result or we should move forward? We should check the result first. Okay, let's check it. You can see the difference. The value received in the function was 10. Value in the function when we added 2, it became 12. But when we completed the function and came back to the global frame, the value remained 10. So this was the proof for our theoretical portion, that the thing we read, that the immutable data type, when passed to a function, the original value remains unchanged. I think it is clear to you? Great. Now we will start with a new example. Now we are working with mutable data type. Mutable data type is list. Here we have created a list called x, that is having value 5, 6, 7, 8 and 9. We have passed that to the function, and we have printed the received value. Then we have made a loop and changing the value, all the values by 1. Okay, so we have incremented the values by 1, and again we have printed the result after the execution of the function. So let us see what is the result. Here you have the value received in the function was 56789, and value after the function execution was 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So it has been changed. So the rule that we learned, that we have already learned, that if a mutable data type is passed to a function and any changes are made in that mutable data type, the changes remain permanent and are also reflected in the global execution frame. Okay, so we have proved our theoretical point. And the other thing was that if we allocate some other variables to that mutable data type, its value will remain unchanged. Okay, so the third one is will be showing that concept to you, that we have a list x 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, same thing is there. What we have done is we have printed the received value, but we have created an extra list having 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, now we have copied the B to A, and now we have changed the value of that this A and printed the value of A, and again we have tried it to print the value of original X. So what do you think? Okay, please see here, when it is passed it becomes A, very good. Then B, which is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 is assigned to A. So now those original values are gone. Now this A is pointing to this B. A equal to B means both A and B will point to this memory location that is holding this list 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So the changes made in A will be in this B. It will become 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It will be printed. But when we come back and print the value of X, the X will remain the same. That is 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, let's check. Here you see the value received in the functions were 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. When you assign that A with a new list called B, it became 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 as you have changed it. But when you came back to the global frame, the value of the original list remained unchanged. Okay, so these were the points that we have discussed in our theoretical session, and we have covered all the topics. Okay, I think these two videos on the practical session have cleared all your doubts. I request you to try some examples if you are having computer at your home, or if you are not having, try to see these videos of practical session again and again. You will be getting more and more clear. Okay, and if there is any query, you can ask me in the comment section. I will respond to your query so that you get those doubts cleared. So these were the two practical sessions covering all the topics that we have discussed in our theoretical session. The next session will be on the possible questions from this chapter. I hope you will cover all the previous theoretical lessons before this practical lesson, and after covering this lesson you will wait eagerly for the session on the possible questions on functions. Here we will discuss all the theoretical and practical questions that can be asked from this chapter. Okay, So all the functions, all the programs that you have made in class 11th without function can be made again with the use of functions. I will have, if you require, I will have an extra video session on the programs that are asked using functions. We will discuss all the programs and how to change in those class 11th programs into a class 12th program using function. That thing I will discuss if you want. So if you require it, please comment me in please give me a comment that you require that videos on the video lesson on all those functions, all those programs that will be covered using functions. It will be starting from addition of two numbers, and it will go up to Fibonacci series and x to the power, and all those programs will be discussed with the use of functions if you require. If you are okay on it, you can make them yourself, then it is very good. If you are facing any difficulty, you can comment me in the comment section and I will make a separate video on all those programs with the use of functions. Okay, so I hope you the best of time that you are having at your homes, and I think you will be grasping more and more programming knowledge from these video lessons and will be forming a good programming base for yourself and for your future. Okay, so we will meet in the next video where we will discuss the possible questions on these function chapter. Thank you very much.